Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. Welcome back to the Plant-Centered and Thriving podcast. My name is Ashley, and today we're talking all about plant-based pregnancy. So I have Crysta, who I interview. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist who helps women and families eat to meet their nutrition needs. She focuses on prevention and wellness while also treating specific conditions. And so Crysta and I, we met through Instagram. She actually lives in Australia, which, just to give you a heads up, we did have a little bit of connection issues, but I think this episode is definitely worth a listen, especially if you know someone who's plant-based and wanting to get pregnant, or they are pregnant, you can share it with them. I think it's just a really fascinating episode because Crysta goes into certain micronutrients that we need to look out for, and macronutrients, how much protein you need and hydration and all of that great stuff. She is a wealth of information. She received her master's degree in nutritional sciences from Boston University in 2010. And then she went on to become certified as a prenatal dietitian in Australia, which is where she currently resides. And as a mother, she empowers women and people who want to have children through sharing the tools necessary to make the best plant-based choices around food and diet for their health, the planet, animal welfare, and of course, a growing baby. Crysta specializes in nutrition for early life, also known as the first 1,000 days. This is the life stage from preconception through pregnancy up to around the age of 2. So nutrition and healthy eating are most important during this time for pregnant people, babies, and mothers, caretakers, setting the stage for optimal health throughout life. Please join me in welcoming Crysta as we talk about all things plant-based pregnancy. Welcome to the podcast, Crysta.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you.
I'm excited too. I cannot wait to talk about all things pregnancy related to plant-based and all that good stuff. So I want to ask you a really tough question, Crysta. Is it safe to conceive on a vegan or plant-based diet?
Yes, great question. Ask me all the hard questions. So it is definitely safe to conceive on a 100% plant-based diet. And there's actually some evidence to point to the fact that plant-based whole foods can actually support fertility. And it's actually something I see, like a lot of women come to me because they are trying and they're like, oh, well, like someone told me to be like a little more plant-based while I'm trying. So that's like a good, kind of starter for them for then going into a plant-based pregnancy. So something else we've actually learned is that early soy consumption, like early in the preconception, can be beneficial for the prevention of some diseases from mom, like breast cancer, and can promote fertility. So the primary focus when trying to conceive is definitely eating enough. So calories, protein, carbs, and fat, right? So if you're eating plant-based to lose weight and restrict calories, like now is not the time to restrict without, you really want to pay attention to getting enough, at least plant-based fats in particular.
Okay. I like that you touched on the soy piece, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there of like, should I be consuming soy? Or especially if I'm wanting to get pregnant, is soy maybe a bad thing, or bad thing for my baby, or a bad thing for the growing fetus, whatever that is, and bad for even my child when they're actually born. So you're saying it actually can be beneficial.
Yeah, 100%, even like twice a day. So I used to kind of say, oh, like once or twice a week. But the more we're learning, the more we realize that these like healthy soy foods, minimally processed, tofu, fermented, tempeh, are really great. And those isoflavones in there are actually good for conception.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, good. And I'm glad that you answered the first question of like, it is safe to conceive on a plant-based diet. And it sounds like there's some benefits potentially to it when in increasing fertility.
Yeah, I love that question. I love that you started with like, can you conceive instead of just have a plant-based pregnancy? So yeah, the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So let's say this person becomes pregnant, they're plant-based. What kind of things do they need to pay attention to while they're going through the 3 trimesters? Kind of nutrient wise, you mentioned like calories, protein, fat, but maybe even touch on that and maybe even some more particular nutrients.
Nutrient requirements definitely increase during pregnancy. And I could talk about this all day. We could go into every single nutrient, but I will, pay attention to ones that are of utmost importance. And it's such a great question, Ashley, because like while eating plant-based during pregnancy is very healthy and it can be beneficial for baby and for mom long-term, setting up healthy life kind of thing. There are some nutrients we really need to pay close attention to. So baby grows well and we prevent any complications. So this is one of the like main things that I focus on with my clients. And we go through like what a typical day looks like for them, where there are any gaps and how we can fill them with food. And then of course the need for supplements. So it's finding that balance between the food and the supplements. So just like I'll touch on a few. So folic acid, that's something that everyone even trying for a pregnancy, plant-based or not, should already be supplementing with. And it's, important for a DNA synthesis, protein creation, but, really most people know about it for closing the neural tubes, preventing neural tube defects. So starting supplementation with folic acid is something around 6 months before conceiving, 3 months. If you just found out you're pregnant and you haven't started supplementing, it's fine. Just like as soon as possible kind of thing, start with the folic acid. And that's one that we definitely supplement with. In food, you get mostly folate. The synthetic form is the folic acid, and that's what you want.
Okay.
Yep.
So, which I think that's really interesting. If you're even thinking about conceiving, 3 months out, maybe considering taking a supplement that has folic acid in it to help with a safe pregnancy.
Yes, we can't micromanage everything and we don't know how long we'll be trying. However, that's kind of the supplement I recommend for insurance. I don't always do that with every kind of vitamin and supplement, but definitely if like as soon as you start planning, thinking about it, why not take some folic acid? Or, you could take a prenatal that has it in it.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. So what are some other micronutrients that you typically touch on?
So iron is a big one. And really because pregnant women, it's very common. Iron deficiency anemia is very common, and plant-based eating is not a risk factor, but pregnancy marks a need for increased iron, right? So it actually, your need will decrease like in first trimester since your menstruation stops, but then it quickly increases again by the third. So I just recommend, getting your iron levels checked prior to pregnancy. And then we know what we're working with. And then again, third trimester, as needs increase again, because then we know there's a need to supplement. Otherwise, like too much iron and supplementation without like the real need for it can cause some negative things going on, especially digestion. So what I usually say is 2 to 3 servings of iron-rich foods, and make sure to pair that with vitamin C. So your plant-based iron foods, start to get used to planning your meals around your plant-based protein and plant-based iron, and make sure it's with vitamin C. When I'm looking to see if you're getting enough iron, I don't even count it unless I see that there's some vitamin C with it. And so that can help you reach your needs about 50 grams. So it's a significant increase, and the anemia is so common. So that is something that we'll look at.
Yeah. Are most doctors pretty good about like when you're going to is it an OBG? Who do you see when you're pregnant?
Most of my clients are still in America, but you have a prenatal visit around 8 weeks. Okay. And that's with an OBGYN. Yeah. Okay. A lot of women in Australia just see a midwife unless like they needed to go for a scan or something. And the routine iron checks are not as common here.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. I was wondering if doctors here in the US, if they're pretty good about checking labs kind of throughout pregnancy, or what that looked like.
Everyone's pretty good about third trimester checking that iron. But what I tell women to advocate for is while you're trying, or at the initial visit, to ask for some stores of nutrients. So especially if you're plant-based, like let's look at vitamin D, B12, and iron.
Okay. So you typically recommend
what we're working in the blood. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So you typically recommend your clients to look at vitamin D, B12, and iron. Did you say like during pregnancy?
And thyroid. Yes, and to get thyroid checked like as soon as possible, so we like know what we're working with.
Okay. And I think that's really important too, to highlight that, Crysta, of like knowing kind of what you're working with. So having a baseline of like what some of these lab values are before getting those labs checked in your first, second, third trimester, just so you kind of know, okay, if my iron is maybe around 50, is that normal for me, or is that abnormally low, or is it higher? That type of thing.
Exactly. And seeing that you've already, mostly it's about reassurance, right? So it's like, oh, great, my iron levels are good. I don't have to stress about people telling me that I need to eat meat during my pregnancy now. So feeling confident about it and just having that reassurance. Usually the routine blood tests. So it's costs nothing else to just make sure that these are on the panel. Yeah, I can't go on without choline, because it's like, it's so important. It's so essential for brain and cognitive function. And we usually just want to make sure that that's in your prenatal. It's pretty hard to get it just from a plant-based diet. So it's the equivalent of 4 eggs. So it's very hard for women on even an omnivorous diet to get enough choline unless they commit to the 4 eggs and, other animal products every day. So the other one is definitely omega-3s. So omega-3 fatty acids, they're so great for brain and eye health of the baby. And we like to get as much as we can from the diet. And if you're eating 100% plant-based, it's totally fine to make sure you're getting a lot, but it will just be the one form, the ALA form. So if the foods that you're eating for fat are mostly from whole foods and they're rich in this ALA form, you're doing great. Okay. So we're like chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, flax seeds, all great choices for fat. But then we usually need to supplement with a DHA. So that's another form of omega-3. And that can just be in the form of algae oil instead of the fish oil that you often see. So that's what we always like to talk about, is those different types of omega-3s and how to make sure you're getting enough.
Okay. That's good to know. So do most prenatal vitamins have omega-3s in them? And when I say omega-3s, even vegan? Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that is the one. And trust me, I have looked at all of them. Like, how can I get, my clients to just like take 1 or take 2, even, just like little supplements a day. And you will rarely see a vegetarian DHA in a prenatal. You won't even see fish oil in a prenatal multivitamin. There are some maybe like powders or like they come in all different forms now that will have some fish oil added. And I think it's mostly because of the composition. Like it can just be like an actual oil, and then it doesn't really fit in the capsule. And so it's just like kind of getting it all in there. And then also the fish oil, it kind of tastes like fish. So then if your whole prenatal tastes like that. So I really recommend the algae oil. There's a few different brands that I like, and you can even take it like a shot, or you can put it in a smoothie. Some of them have like lemon essence or something to them. I always think it's important to find supplements that have like different flavors, because you kind of get sick of things during pregnancy. So you're like, oh yeah, that one, I could stomach it for a while, and then you just like can't. So then you just switch over to the other one. Yeah. So I think that answered your question. Oh yeah. So yeah, you just have to take it separate. Yeah.
Okay. And that makes sense.
Yeah, and if it's oil, like you can sprinkle it on food, or there's just options. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like that that's an option for people who maybe don't want to take a capsule or multiple capsules, in a day. So that's nice that there's at least a liquid form that people can add, like you said, to their smoothies, or just take it like a shot if they want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The last nutrient I'll just mention it is calcium, because that, kind of like iron, we can focus on getting it from the diet, and you don't necessarily have to supplement with it, especially on a plant-based diet. So it's a question that I get pretty often is, do I need to, drink milk and have dairy? And calcium is very important. And, we think of bone formation, but it also reduces the risk of preeclampsia getting enough calcium, and it plays a role in blood like clotting and nerve function. So during pregnancy, your calcium absorption actually increases, so your requirements don't increase. Your body just is amazing and starts using it better. You want to make sure you're getting enough, which is the pre-pregnancy amount, which is 1,000 milligrams. So you don't necessarily need to supplement, but using fortified foods is a very good idea, like making sure the plant milk that you may already be drinking has about 300 milligrams fortified with it. Calcium set tofu is a great example. Your cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, collards, bok choy. Those are all favorites of mine, and tahini also. So yeah, I just recommend paying attention that you're getting some of those foods at least in your diet.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. You told us a little bit, gave us a teaser of what you look for in a prenatal, something like choline or folic acid. Are there any other things when you're working with clients that you recommend clients look out for when they're looking for a prenatal?
I really go through, whatever prenatals you guys are looking at and, my clients are looking at, and I have some recommendations. And prenatal vitamins are meant to supplement a well-rounded diet, right? So they're not going to be your cure-all. They're not going to give you everything you need for a healthy pregnancy, but it's usually a good idea to take one, to take a multi so that you're not taking so many different little pills, right? Having said that, I do like those that are in divided doses. They're usually a bit easier on the stomach and helps with absorption, like spacing out the time you take a vitamin versus getting nutrients from food. So it can help, space that out throughout the day. I do look to make sure it has the choline, also iodine, especially for plant-based, and then B12 to start. So usually other B vitamins, but that's kind of what I'm looking at, making sure it has those things. Otherwise, like right off the bat, I'm telling you to take a separate choline supplement and, I start rolling. So yeah. The other thing that I look at, know what not to have, which is like any added dyes, added colorants, any extra herbs or even adaptogens, right? So that's like the mushrooms, the cordyceps, the ashwagandha. We just want to stay away from that stuff during pregnancy because we know so little.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really good information. Actually, I did not know a lot of that. So.
And then not all of them are plant-based. So a lot of these ingredients are derived from animals. So you could just look for a vegetarian. They definitely exist. Something like your vitamin D3 will be usually derived from sheepskin. So you can look for a D2 that's usually derived from mushrooms. There is a D3 that is also maybe vegetarian, but it should specify that on the bottle. So if that's something you want to look out for, then you just have to read the label.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So we talked a lot about micros, which I think is fantastic. What about macros? So you touched on calories, protein, fat, carbohydrates. Is there, I think a concern with a lot of people is like, well, am I going to get enough protein on a plant-based diet and also, go through full term? What do you kind of say to that?
A lot of the plant-based pregnant women I work with are worried that they can't meet the protein needs because they increase by so much. They increase by 50%. So protein is usually not a problem when eating plant-based prior to pregnancy, even if you're 100% plant-based. But the increased needs during pregnancy can be really challenging for a lot of women. So some tips that what we usually talk about are having a smoothie every day, like not necessarily a protein shake, but like making your own smoothie, adding tofu, adding peanut butter, adding frozen edamame. So, and then swaps also are really helpful. So switching to extra firm tofu instead of the softer tofu, and also tempeh, those will be higher, using higher protein breads and pastas. So those made from chickpea or lentil flour, and then making your own too, making things with these flours really can help you make a little high protein bread or a crepe or a pancake. And protein powders also can be safe in pregnancy. You just want to look for one that again, doesn't have those herbs or doesn't have the green powder or adaptogens or artificial sweeteners. And so, we really go through which ones are safe and not. It's not just anyone goes kind of thing.
Crysta, I don't think I knew this. So protein needs during pregnancy increase by 50% is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So one of the first things we start doing is if you were not doing this already, planning your perfect plant-based meals, right? Start to build each meal around plant protein. Okay. So I have this my little plant-based pregnancy plate. And what I teach is protein, fiber, and fat, right? So the protein, we want to make sure it's your high quality plant protein every meal and snack, right? So that means your beans, lentils, legumes, right? Soy or wheat gluten, right? Peanut butter and hemp seeds, we can also count a little bit, and they can be considered that primary source of protein, but the rest of the stuff, the nuts, the seeds, whole grains, veggies, that all contain some protein. They will all contribute to your daily intake. I like to start seeing those actually just as a bonus, right? So I categorize them as either the fat or the fiber. So then it's always your main protein, and then fiber and fat choices also that are contributing to the protein as well.
Okay. Yeah. And I feel like the way you approach it too, it feels really attainable because you're just making little swaps to make things a little bit higher in protein. Like you said, the pasta or the breads, or even switching out your tofu and just kind of paying attention to those things versus like overhauling your entire diet and making it feel maybe really overwhelming.
Yes, it can be overwhelming, and I have clients that are like, I'm just way off here. Like I'm way low. I have not paid attention to how much protein I would think I would need. And, that's where the little tips come in. The swaps. Oh, well, why don't we make a dressing from hemp seeds, right? Instead of just dumping on an extra 5 ounces of tofu on your salad,
Yeah.
Let's do stuff you're already doing and just boost it.
Okay. Yeah. Anything to pay attention to? We talked about the omega-3s, and you've mentioned fat. Anything we need to pay attention to in regards to just overall consumption or carbohydrate intake? I mean, you mentioned the fiber.
As far as like energy needs and calories, it's usually you don't need any extra calories in first trimester. So what I do is I will calculate calorie needs, but I definitely don't recommend counting calories during pregnancy. There's a few side effects that happen. It's like the first trimester, you might not be hungry. Third trimester, you might feel full a lot. So energy requirements definitely increase. However, a good way to do it is by getting in the habit of adding 2 more eating times and then doing those little boosts. So it's not just like bigger portions every meal. And also, so it's not just like, well, now I'm eating for 2, like double up on everything. So definitely depending on where you start and how many calories you were eating pre-pregnancy, you can aim to increase by up 300 calories a day. Now, this is like a generic like value it's actually based on like the estimate that it takes 80,000 calories to support a full-time pregnancy. And then that's all divided up.
No way.
So, which is crazy because that's like takes into account maternal, like, mom's metabolism, fetal metabolism, and also like placental growth, which is, a whole like being. So that's just a crazy number. And pregnancy is long. It's a long time. So whatever, there's some science behind it and that's okay. And I like to really just use the formula and calculate like the needs for you. And like I said, so first trimester, you don't really need more calories at all. And many are relieved to hear that because the nausea and the feelings of fullness. But then like second and third, you can look at it about like 340 in the second and then 450 in the third. So again, like don't drive yourself crazy. Just get in the habit of adding in like 2 mini meals. So, and which means that it should include protein. So, 2 slices of whole grain bread and some peanut butter and banana, a little sandwich divided into 2 is fine. An extra smoothie, right? That's not actually breakfast. It's in between your meals, some fruit and nuts in there, some plant-based yogurt with some seedy granola, like something like that. So that's usually kind of what, look at it in terms of food and not just like a number.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's helpful too, because there's already a lot of things that moms are worrying about while they're growing a baby. So it's one less thing that they have to really pay attention to.
Yes, 100%. And that's, what I do in the practice that I'm in. It's like, let's just give you all the information you need, not to overwhelm you, just so you have the tools. And then you can stop worrying about it, right? Let's get these healthy habits in place so they're second nature and you can worry about what's important, which is like becoming a mom.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So I wanted to touch on hydration really quickly. And then I have a couple more questions, but is there anything that we need to worry about with hydration, or how do I know if I'm getting enough water? How does that work?
So water needs are they increase a ton. It plays a role in fetal blood circulation, but also like your mom's blood volume doubles. So That's like why we want so much salt. That's why like salt cravings for salty things happens. Is like we need salt and water, right, to support that blood volume. Staying hydrated can also like really help with side effects like fatigue and headaches. And actually those can be some signs of dehydration. So we want to keep an eye on that. If we're feeling fatigued, and, we want to just look at your fluid intake and make sure you're getting enough. Especially in the first trimester, it can be difficult to get enough water or, enough hydration. And that's unfortunate because that's when they're very high. It's when like things are growing very rapidly. So what you can do is use some things that's not just water. If water is tough for you, first of all, you can take a look at the water you're having. Do you need to put ice in it? Do you need to put a straw in it? Do you need to keep it around? That kind of thing. But also let's look at tea. Is tea sound okay? Could you make a cold tea? Could you do a sparkling, fruity, cold drink instead? Could you do soup? Fruits and vegetables can contribute to your hydration, some more than others. Watermelon, it's got the word right in there. Have some of that, use that, and even plant milks, that will all help you get to your requirement, which is about like 2.5 liters. What is that? It's like 100 ounces. So 12 and a half cups. So
okay,
it increases if you're thinking of the 8 cups, now aim for 12, that kind of thing.
Okay. That's good to know. And along those lines too, do you have any helpful remedies? I didn't put this on our questions, but any helpful remedies for constipation? Because I know that that's something that is a big struggle.
Yes. So one of the side effects that hydration helps with, it's fatigue, headaches, constipation. So I have a couple Instagram posts on this too, but I like to work with my clients and just see how much fiber they're eating off the bat. But there are some things that you can add that won't do any harm. So definitely ground flax seeds. It's an easy one because you can sprinkle it on stuff, especially in a smoothie or your cereal. Like you could kind of not taste it, or if you like it, then great, put it on your toast. That really does, I would say 2 tablespoons of that. Kiwi is also really good, I think. And again, like my prescription will be like 2 kiwis. Yeah. So try to have 2 kiwis a day for a couple days, and that can do the trick. And then really make sure you're hitting your hydration. Do some movement if you're not, if you're feeling tired and you're sitting around, and just some gentle movement can help, some gentle massage. Yeah, the hydration thing is definitely important, but you might want to also start your day with a warmer drink. I don't know if you're doing coffee or not, but just at least a warm, even ginger tea. The constipation can also affect the nausea, so the ginger can help with that.
Okay, nice. I have heard that ginger is good for nausea. Are there any other sort of remedies that you recommend or prescribe that are food-based to help with the nausea?
Yeah. So the tips for the nausea, it depends on you and what you're already doing, but small frequent meals is the way to eat throughout your entire pregnancy that I would like to see my clients getting in that habit early on, because it really supports actually even meeting nutrient needs later on, even if the nausea subsides. So eating too much, feeling too full or feeling too hungry are triggers for nausea. So the way to do that is by getting in just small amounts very frequently. It's so much easier said than done. I mean, these women are busy, or they're at work, they can't just be eating all day. But just some almonds, bringing toast, really kind of, again, a little homemade protein shake smoothie kind of thing. These are the ways so you can easily get in some protein throughout the day, stabilize blood sugar, right? So not getting too hungry, not getting too full, not having those spikes and dips in blood sugar, all are going to help prevent the nausea. Ginger helps for some. For some, it doesn't do anything, but it's pleasant. It could just help them drink more water if it tastes a little gingery. And then there's some other ways to trick yourself, which can be just chewing on stuff or sucking on stuff. They have pregnancy, I think they're called pregnancy pops, but it's just sour, something sour. So Yeah, I used to just say don't have any of the candy, like use fresh ginger, but sometimes like the ginger sugary candy can kind of trick your olfactory senses as well. And it just kind of clears the palate and then you feel like eating something again afterwards. So a question that I often get is like, what if I feel too sick to eat vegetables, because I'm a plant-based eater and I've been eating vegetables and, so it's just try not to stress, focus more on protein and vegetables, know that your baby is taking mostly from your nutrient stores during first trimester, and then take a look at like the foods that you can tolerate that are like your nausea friendly foods, like, and then can you give them a boost? If it's chips, can you try like lentil chips or chickpea chips? If you're just eating bread, make sure it's that whole grain bread with lots of seeds. Can you handle a smoothie? Add your veggies in there. Don't just use greens, like put some zucchini in there, put some cauliflower in there. All can work.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I like those tips. I think that's really helpful. So how did things go, Crysta, with your plant-based pregnancy?
Yes. So my daughter is 1.5, so it's ages ago. But now like working with plant-based pregnant women and like seeing them feel like worried if they're not getting enough. And they really just want to make sure baby is growing well and that they're preventing complications, right? So back before I was a prenatal dietitian, I was a very like generic kind of dietitian and seeing a lot of chronic disease prevention. And when I got pregnant, I felt like a lot of the providers like assumed I knew everything because I was a dietitian. But really, what I know now is that they don't like to give diet advice because they don't really know it. They're not really trained in it. So, I think that every woman should see a dietitian. And what I learned was that I knew I was getting enough protein, which is the main concern. I was diagnosed with preeclampsia at 40 and a half weeks. All I wanted for my birth was to not be induced.
Yeah.
Like, you make a birth plan, it doesn't go to plan ever.
Sure.
But I didn't want to be induced because I didn't want Pitocin, and this was just my personal choice. I thought if I got Pitocin, I would want the epidural. So I'm like, a few days past my due date, and I go in just for a routine check, but my blood pressure was out of control. And I mean, not out of control. It was a little high, like for me, who's very low, it was quite alarming. And they said, okay, we'll just induce you right now. And, that was very scary for me. It wound up being fine. Like I didn't need the Pitocin. I took a different drug, and then I was able to have the rest of my birth, and it went very smoothly. Then a year later, not even, but I became doing my certification, learning about all the nutrients and the relationship that they have in pregnancy. So I learned that having the requirement of 1,000 or even a bit over to 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day reduces the risk of preeclampsia.
Wow.
Now, as a plant-based eater in my pregnancy, like I wasn't paying attention to calcium. I have no idea if I was getting enough calcium. But now that is advice that I get to give to my clients if they've had preeclampsia in the past, or they are at risk for if they have any other risk factors for preeclampsia. We dive in there and we look at the calcium, and you know what? It's not hard to get that amount. But if you're not paying attention, it's also pretty easy to fall short. So
wow.
Let's just, reduce the risk of anything going wrong. Like this is pregnancy. You're growing a baby and you're going to have a little perfect baby. So let's make sure like you're doing everything you can.
Yeah. Yep. And I like what you said earlier that you like it when people who are, whether they're going to become pregnant or they are pregnant, to see also a dietitian, because I know doctors, they don't get a lot of education when it comes to nutrition, and especially plant-based nutrition. And so maybe there can be some miscommunication, or maybe even some, I don't know if you ever felt this way, but I know that some clients of mine, or even just people in general, will say that maybe my doctor told me that I should eat meat or I should drink cow's milk for this or that. Is there something that you recommend, especially for your plant-based clients, how to communicate with their doctor?
It's a great question. Usually once they're already my clients, I'm like, you're good. You just tell them you're working with a prenatal
Yes.
dietitian. Like that's
Yeah.
all you need to say. Because usually they feel relieved. Like these
Yeah.
other providers are saying that because that's what they know. Like they
Yeah.
know, they think they hear calcium, they think dairy, and that's what they say. And then they might feel nervous if someone says they don't drink that. They don't know the alternative. So if you just can say, I'm working with the prenatal dietitian, or you can be more specific and say, did you know that I'm actually getting my calcium from dried figs, tahini, broccoli, and cauliflower, and I eat this many servings a day. So go for it.
Yes. I bet if someone ever told their doctor that, they'd be like, okay, you're good to go.
Yeah, like just be kind and be gentle, but definitely stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself, and don't be afraid to share information that you know that they may not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really great. Empowering the person, not the provider, but the person who is pregnant to stand up for themselves and advocate for themselves and their baby and their
100%.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're making this choice because you think it's the best choice for you, probably health wise, but also aligned with your morals and values. And I don't want you to feel like just because someone said, "Oh, well, don't you need meat for iron?" You say, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, that, I guess so." Like that's what my
Mm,
doctor says, so maybe that's what I should just do because I don't know what else to do.
yeah.
So
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, Crysta, I need to work with you, or I at least need to connect with you on social media, where is the best place that they can go just to have some peace of mind if they're thinking about becoming pregnant or if they are pregnant right now?
yes, absolutely. So I work with women, from all stages of motherhood, from preconception up to moms of toddlers. So I'm on Instagram at plant-based_motherhood. And then firsttastenutrition.com, that's my website. And that's where I highlight some of the other services that I work with families a little bit more, and not just pregnancy. But that's the Instagram where you can DM me and connect with me there. And I've got tips and happy to chat.
Great. And we'll include those links in the show notes. So if you're listening, you're like, I need to do that right now, you can just click below right now and go follow Crysta or connect with Crysta and reach out if that's what you want to do. Crysta, I know that you shared a broth recipe, which is also in the show notes. Can you touch on that just really quickly?
Yes, just really quickly. It's so hard for me to choose a recipe because I love cooking. I love putting up recipes, but the vegetable stock, it's not really a recipe. It's more like a tutorial. I've been told it's a game changer. I definitely will never go back to buying my own veg stock. It's just a wonderful way to nourish your pregnant and postpartum body through simple cooking, right? It's a very simple, wholesome thing to do in the kitchen. It adds flavor and extra minerals to everything. So even added to sauces, salad dressings, right? Not just soup. It doesn't take much time and it's zero money, and it also prevents food waste.
Oh, very nice. I like it. I can't wait to make it.
Yeah, take a look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wonderful. Well, Crysta, thank you so much for coming on and sharing just with the audience about this topic. I really do appreciate you and your wisdom and your transparency, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and share.
All right. We will catch you next time. Until next time, keep thriving.